Take a step in the right direction with Lipton iced tea, available in a 1.5-litre bottle for you to enjoy at home every day.
A solar-powered phone, what next? You gotta love that kind of thing. Well, in the studio with me this morning is Nikki Bush, a creative parenting expert who has a passion for play and relationships and for giving parents creative ways of being parents, which is just fantastic. So, Nikki, great to have you with us this morning in studio. We're talking social media. Now, that for many parents is the big evil, but it isn't, is it? It's a neutral situation and it's going to be here to stay. It's not a fad, is it?
No, definitely not a fad, Michael. It's a trend, here to stay. In December last year, we had 500 million people on Facebook, and that's doubling every 9 months. And so if parents think that we're going to go back to normal, they've got another thing coming. And as parents today, we've got to get used to this new normal. We've got to start looking at the world through a different lens. And we're dealing with a generation of kids who are wired.
That's right.
They do this intuitively. They know what it's all about, and we're playing catch-up all the time. But the problem is we've got sort of two camps of parents. The one lot who's saying, I don't understand this invisible thing called the net and technology. Okay. So you know what, I'll turn my back and you guys just carry on.
Which is probably the worst thing you can do.
Probably. And then the other camp who are kind of doing this access denied. This is the big evil. You are not going on the net. And that's also not the best strategy in terms of preparing your children for a future that is going to be run by technology, that is going to be run by social media.
That's right. That's how business is being done these days.
It is, and it will increasingly be so. So if you wanted your children to learn how to read and write really well, you also need your children to know how to work a computer really well and to know how to navigate the net, navigate social media, because that's going to be the way they will do business.
Well, let me stop for a moment and give you a little bit of a punt, because you're describing future-proof your child right there. Tell me a bit about that book. It's a bestseller at the moment. It's doing particularly well. What's the concept behind future-proof your child?
The thing with future-proofing your children is that we are going to inherit a world in the future that we as parents can't yet imagine. And our children need to be prepared to surf the exponential change that is coming down the line. And in order to do that, they're going to need more than just grades. They're going to need what we call X factors for success. So the book tackles what those X factors will be. Those are things that employers of the future will look for. Things like creativity, thinking out of the box, resilience and resourcefulness, knowing yourself and knowing how to connect with others. So things that are not really taught, they're caught. And as parents, we role model those things all the time. And just consider that about 60 to 70% of our children will be self-employed.
That's right. In fact, what did Richard Riley say? The top 10 in-demand jobs for 2010 didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago.
No, absolutely.
You know,
so everything is changing, and so parents are panicking because they can't even see this thing called the net. Yeah. And of course, when we panic, we blame things. And we're blaming technology, we're blaming the net. But it really isn't a place, it's just a channel.
That's right.
And what our children do on this channel...
it's a neutral channel,
It's a neutral channel,
yes, there's no good or bad. This is access.
It is. And our children are growing up with huge freedom of access to information, like we never had, because information used to belong to churches and governments and then multinational corporations, and now it belongs to the individual.
That's right.
And with freedom comes, of course, responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we have to teach our children in terms of navigating the net, in terms of connecting on the net, that there are responsibilities that come with it. There are things they have to be aware of, and of course there are dangers out there, just as there are dangers offline. And we always teach our children about stranger danger, don't we? When they're 3 or 4 years old, do not get into a stranger's car.
And don't take sweets from a stranger.
Don't take sweets from a stranger.
It's just so much bigger now.
It's so much bigger.
I'm going to bring you back to something you said right in the beginning, Nikki. You said either you ignore it and just say, do your own thing, or you curb it and you say you may not touch Facebook, for example. What's the in-between? What's the right amount of Facebook and Twitter?
Well, we need to keep this perspective that Facebook and Twitter and social media are part of a much bigger change in communication history, really. We're sitting on the cusp of that change where everything has changed and is different. The rule of thumb, roughly, thumb suck, roughly 2 hours a day, and we're talking for tweens and teens. We're not talking about the primary school kids, okay?
As much as 2 hours a day?
About 2 hours a day, but that's combined screen time. That's cell phone, that's TV, that's computer time. Okay. As they get into their later teens, of course now with school, they're having to spend a lot more time on the net for research, for projects. So then we're probably looking at about 3 hours a day. Add to that sport and all sorts of other things. Well, I don't know if there's enough time to even be doing 3 hours a day, but if you look at how much time they spend on their cell phones, because of course everything's going mobile, our children need to know how to stay safe in this environment too, because on phones you don't have filters.
No, you don't.
You can put them on your computers, but not on your
tell
phones.
me about phones. What age should a child be given a phone?
Oh, this is a tough one.
I know.
Everybody
That's what
wants
I want
to
to
know.
Exactly. Tell us.
I don't think there's any perfect age, but I think that under the age of 12, they really can't be responsible for something as expensive as a cell phone when they don't even know how to remember where they put their tackies and their school swimming costume and their cap.
Okay.
So we want our children to play under the age of 12. We want them to have a concrete experience of the world. And we don't want them to be responsible for high-tech items which are going to impede that enjoyment factor in life.
Yeah.
And they're not really responsible enough with the applications that come with a cell phone today.
Yeah, because that's the other question. Cell phone is one thing. What kind of cell phone is another? You know, one that just makes and receives calls.
So I think that's the other thing that parents need to understand is what applications do they want their children to have access to.
Sure.
We often give our children a phone because we are fearful and we want to keep tabs on our children.
Yeah.
A phone is a great thing if your child's out and about, and for example my son flew down to Cape Town on Friday and I kept tabs with him when he arrived on the Gautrain, when he got to the SAA counter, when he got through the boarding
you're just like
pass.
the rest of us. That's so good to know.
Absolutely,
you know,
and it was so great, and I go, phew, you know. But I think under the age of 12, for example, my youngest, who's 11, he just switches off his phone and never switches it on. So even if he's on the bus and I'm chasing the bus because I can't get to him and he's forgotten we've got a doctor's appointment and he shouldn't have got on the bus, there he goes.
Great.
And I can't phone him.
Nikki, there's so much more to talk about, and we are going to talk about that. In fact, Nikki Bush, we're going to have her in studio again, in fact, later today. So stick around for that. More about social media. Right now, though, we're going to an ad break, and after that, we're going to do some kids cooking. So from kids cooking on their mobile phones to kids cooking in the kitchen, you're hearing it all and seeing it all on Expresso, live on SABC3.
Take a step in the right direction with Lipton iced tea, available in a 1.5